Razer finally released its Kishi gamepad for Android devices, and it's pretty cool. I played a lot of games on it. My review is next. Hands on Tech is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Access everything you need online simply and securely, wherever you're logging in from. LastPass makes security for your digital life effortless. Visit lastpass.com/twit.
This is Twit.
This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by Molecule. Molecule is reimagining the future with clean air. For 10% off your first air purifier order, visit molecule.com and enter code HOT. Hey everyone, I'm Jason Howell, and I am stoked for this review. I have right here in my hands the Razer Kishi gamepad for Android devices, specifically for Android devices. Now, I've played a lot of games on Android over the years, and it's the same for iOS, but when you're playing certain types of games, the on-screen keys, the controllers that are laid out on screen, in a touch sort of way, they just don't cut it all the time. Some games it works really great for, and even some like fast-paced action games, they can figure out a configuration that makes it work. Strangely, you kind of get used to it. But when you don't have to get used to it, it makes me pretty happy because something like this, the Kishi, actually allows you to take the hardware gamepad that you're used to, say playing on a console, and then rope that into your Android playing. Now, you could take a console controller and sync that up to your Android device. I've shown off how to do that on an episode of Hands on Android. If you want to check that out, you can do that. But this is an integrated approach to kind of bringing the Nintendo Switch form factor to Android devices. So let's dive in and see why the Razer Kishi is so special. So first of all, the hardware and the design. The layout, as I said, is very reminiscent of the Nintendo Switch. You've got the buttons, of course, which I say they feel nice. They're comfortable. I like them. There's also a few extra buttons. There's 3 extra buttons: a home, a back, and a forward, or, those are just utility buttons. You can really program them to be whatever you want. Mainly for me, they acted as select and start, that sort of stuff, and usually mapped automatically for me, which was nice. You got the D-pad, of course, which worked fine for my thumbs. It's a better quality D-pad than I've actually seen in some other controllers of this type. And then 2 analog sticks that are clickable. They center nicely. Sometimes, though, the sticks aren't as sensitive, or I didn't find them as sensitive as I was looking for kind of smaller movements. And sometimes I had to kind of push them just a little bit harder than maybe I wanted to in that moment to get that subtle movement. But my fingers adjusted over time, and that got better. You've got 2 shoulder buttons on each side. They are a little squishy. The bottom ones have a lot of travel to them, but I found them to be perfectly sufficient. Feel really nice. Overall, buttons and controllers feel pretty top shelf for a controller of this type. Now, one of the things that makes the Razer Kishi special is its collapsible design. So when you've got a phone inside of it, it has that very familiar Nintendo Switch look. It's very easy to just pop out the one side, the left-hand side. The smartphone kind of pops out of there. And then on the right-hand side where it connects via USB-C, you just slide that out, fold the whole Kishi together, and it kind of snaps into place. And you end up with a smaller form factor device that can sort of be pocketable, but it's still kind of big for that. I could fit it in my pocket, but it was just a little big. But nonetheless, it's pretty portable when it collapses down. Now, on top of that, of course, you've got the universal fit that it allows for. So putting a phone in, like I said, there's a USB-C port in the middle of the right-hand side. So this only works with Android phones that have that USB-C port and that it's centered. I use the OnePlus 8 Pro, the Pixel 3a, the Pixel 4 XL, and the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, and they all worked perfectly for this. You just slide the phone into the port, then you pop the left-hand side of the Kishi around the left edge of the phone, and boom, it's in place and you're good to go. Of course, the one thing to remember here is that you have to remove the phone case if you have one in order to fit it in there, but I just feel like that's a no-duh. You can also see that there are some speaker ports on the right-hand side face of the Kishi. This is for phones that have a bottom firing speaker, so that sound doesn't get trapped into the Kishi. This passes it through, and it works really nice to get the sound out of the device. Now, the USB-C port on the bottom of the Kishi is also included, and this is good because it allows for pass-through power, which is great. You can plug it in if you've got a long gaming session, and it's just going to pass that power through the Kishi into the phone, and you're good to go. You'll actually see an LED on the right side of the Kishi that indicates when power is plugged in, so that's nice. One complaint about the design, the overall design, is that the left side, when you fasten it in to this universal fit, can feel a little flimsy. It wobbles during gameplay. And in fact, I can kind of show you right now, if we've got the device like this, you can kind of see how this wobbles back and forth. And it's not ideal. Like sometimes when you're gaming, you get a little bit of that wobble. It's just a little too much give, I think. So that's something to consider. Another complaint is that the backside feels a little unfinished. And I realize, like you can kind of see on the back here, it's this way because of the universal fit, right? But when you're playing, there's no perfect place for your fingers to go. And some of these edges are a little sharp. So over time, you end up getting a little bit sore in the fingers based on where they're resting on that back plate. It's not the end of the world, but it is a consideration, definitely something to take a look at. All right, one big advantage of the Razer Kishi comes in the realm of lag, or rather the lack of lag. This is not a Bluetooth controller. This is a wired controller via that USB-C port. So really, lag ends up being pretty negligible. Great for gaming performance. However, not so great if you want to wear wired headphones. That USB-C port on the bottom does not pass through any headphone information. So even if you use a dongle that includes a headphone port in it, you're not going to get your headphone audio through there. And most phones, if they have a wired headphone port, are going to be covering that port with the sides of the Kishi. It's really going to cover all of the usable space on both sides. Therefore, you won't have access to that wired port. So you're left with using Bluetooth headphones. And anyone who's used Bluetooth headphones along with gaming knows that it introduces lag into the audio. So your audio is delayed compared to the video on the screen. And I definitely noticed that. It's something to consider. I almost opted more for playing and gaming through the speakers instead of through Bluetooth earphones. If I could help it, it just made it a little bit better. So that's a bummer concession. This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by Molekule. Molekule is not just innovation on existing technology, but a scientific breakthrough in air purification. Molekule air purifiers destroy pollutants, including viruses, bacteria, mold, allergens, and chemicals in the air. Molekule's technology and filtration systems have been tested and verified by third-party laboratories for the whole home and beyond. For 10% off your first air purifier order, visit molekule.com and enter code HOT at checkout. That's MOLEKULE.com, code HOT. Now, as for games, because this is a game controller, I played a whole lot of games. First of all, just Android games straight up. There's a lot of Android games out there that support a hardware controller. And, I played Limbo, Horizon Chase, Grid Autosport, Minecraft, Fortnite. Nearly all of them mapped to the controller automatically. It was as easy as like plug it in, launch the game, and go, and everything was seamless. Altered Beast by Sega, that old classic, not so hot. Otherwise, that was like one of the only games that really didn't map perfectly for me. But I would say the majority of them played beautifully as far as that's concerned. Another thing that you might want to use your Android device for, especially with a controller like this, is emulation. It's a great emulation system. Now, the standard warning applies here. You only want to play emulated games that you own legally. So keep that in mind. But I tested the Citra Emulator. It's a pretty recently updated emulator for the 3DS on the Play Store. I did have to hardware map the buttons, but that was super quick. And once I did that, everything played about as good as it can on the Citra. It's a little laggy at times, but that's the fault of the emulator, not the controller. Also, NES.emu and Super Retro 16 for NES and Super Nintendo emulation. Both were completely plug and play right out of the box and worked great. So a great controller if you're into emulation on Android. And then now we have to talk a little bit about Stadia, Google's cloud gaming platform. This is a really great use case for this, because you're talking about not quite console quality controller here, but pretty near it in many ways. And then Stadia is, of course, PC quality games streaming from the cloud. So I played a lot of Shadow of the Tomb Raider and some Mortal Kombat 11 on this controller. And in both cases, the Kishi was almost as solid as a console controller. I actually play Tomb Raider on my PlayStation 4 at home. I'm used to those controls. These feel similar, though not entirely perfect, but very similar. Playing PC quality games on my phone with a near console quality controller like this is pretty epic. I was not able to try the Microsoft xCloud, although it's my understanding that this works out of the box with xCloud as well. And finally, Razer has a Kishi app. Now, the app has a couple of different functions. First of all, it allows you to update the firmware on the Kishi, which was really easy to do. I just held down the Y, B, and function button while plugging in the phone, and it did it. It updated seamlessly. It also detects games on your device that are gamepad enabled. Didn't detect them all, but it detected some of them, so it makes it easier to find what games would be compatible with a Kishi that you already have. And it has a discovery tab for games that you can jump out to in the Play Store and download and use with your Kishi. All right, so rounding all of this out with the Razer Kishi here, let's start with the downsides. No wired headphone capability, and that's going to be a real stinger for some people. Even with a USB-C dongle, I was hoping it would work through there, and it didn't. So keep that in mind. Bluetooth is going to add that lag, and you're just going to have to deal with that. The left side has a little bit of flex to it when you're playing, and that can get a little annoying. And then the backside is a little uncomfortable with longer plays. But on the upside, almost everything else is amazing, right? High quality controls and buttons throughout. It's collapsible. It's a universal fit. Auto mapping is almost seamless. And the wired design, the USB-C plug into the phone, means that there's zero lag in gameplay. And that is a major upside to this device. So color me impressed. This costs $80. The Razer Kishi is $80, maybe a little expensive for a gamepad, but I think you get a lot of quality here. And as far as any of the controllers that I've used specifically for gaming on mobile phones, this is the best one that I've tested. So this is kind of the premier one in my mind that others have to beat going forward. So you should definitely check it out. I'm Jason Howell. I appreciate you watching this review, and I hope that you'll find me all over the Twit network, where I talk all about Android and put my hands on Android, and sometimes talk about some tech news every week on Tech News Weekly. Take care.
Keep up with all the hottest tech news and gadgets. Visit twit.tv. There you'll be able to find and subscribe to all our tech shows. Thanks for watching Hands on Tech.